Go ahead, kid. Look at that. There's your little hand. Benny's about to play for us.
You're off, Ben.
Okay, Benny.
Benjamin!
I don't know what I'd do without old Benny. Benny, why did you draw me?
Don't answer that, Ben.
Benjamin.
Benjamin,
Close your eyes,
but you are
Ben.
doing nothing!
Benny.
Okay.
In your own time, Benjamin.
Before Your Eyes is a game I knew would devastate me. The premise is immediately captivating. A game you control by blinking. But in none of the videos that I had seen about the game did I pick up on the fact that the main character and I share the same name. Now, normally that's not a big deal in a piece of media, it's kind of fun for a second, but this game, it's different. After setting up a camera, if you blink, the game jumps forward in time and you will never hear what somebody was saying when you accidentally blink. When I first played this game, I was going through a pretty emotionally significant breakup. She was a childhood best friend. We reconnected later. And we were happy, you know, for the first chunk of that relationship. We were really happy. I mean, I had never been so in love. She was someone who was there for me. No one else was. Somebody who just got me. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it was true for a while. Nothing ever went wrong. And we just intuitively knew each other. And hours and hours. I'd known her for so long that Benny and I have more in common than just our name. The Ben in Before Your Eyes was a pretty lonely kid. He didn't have many friends, but he did have a lot of pressure from his parents to excel at an early age. Now, I wouldn't say my parents have ever pressured me to fulfill their dreams, but I was a lonely kid. We moved a lot while I was growing up, and I never really felt firmly rooted anywhere until high school. And while my parents weren't the source, at least not entirely, I always felt the pressure to be something. Most of us do, to be fair. This isn't a unique kinship I could only ever share with Benny, but my pressures arose from the loneliness. I had to be great at something because I just wanted someone to care. I tried visual arts, poetry, writing stories, playing guitar, singing songs, making costumes, hell. I even tried the whole YouTube thing when I was 11.
Down squid here.
But, you know, who didn't? But the truth is, I spent so much time trying to find something that would make me feel like I was meant to exist that I didn't realize how needless it was. After a certain point, the loneliness was almost by choice, because it was more interesting than just being nothing. So when the game asks you to describe Benny's childhood as happy or lonely, I sat there, immobilized. Up to this point, I had been passively making connections with his character, finding bits of myself in him and bits of him in me, but never putting the whole picture together. I was wrapped up in this grand story of success that Benny had achieved despite everything. And then the game ripped me out of it and forced me to confront myself in a moment on that dark sea that could have been an eternity. Or at least that's what I remember. Before Your Eyes isn't just about seeing through somebody else's eyes, it's about reliving somebody else's memory. And while capturing the experience of memory recall is almost certainly impossible, Before Your Eyes conveys the experience with artistic finesse. No scene has all of the details. Most of your field of vision is typically filled with a murky, dark void, with only the key elements of a space preserved in your memory. None of these recollections are perfect time capsules of a space as it was. Some details stick out, some are probably wrong, and some have just faded forever, leaving nothing but an inky shadow to fill the space. And when you blink, it's gone. Recall for a moment an important time in your life. Maybe it was 5 or 10 years ago. Try to fill in this space. Where were you? What things did you see? Is it a space that you've been to 1,000 times, or just once and never again? Regardless of how well you know it, try to construct a 3D model of it in your head. Now try to recall who else was there. What people were there? Were you alone? What were they saying? What were they wearing? What did it all sound like? Were you too hot? What did it feel like? How was the weather? Were you too hot? Too cold? What were you wearing? What was everyone wearing? What was everyone else? What were they all doing? Try to recollect each and every person's actions and now put it all together and... You can't. Even if you remember all of the details, you can't see it all at the same time. Your brain isn't making a crystal clear recreation of every detail like a movie in your head. It's probably a little fuzzy. As you focus on the people, the space recedes into the darkness. As you recall a conversation with somebody, the rest of the people slip in and out of the memory altogether. Now, if you happen to have a video of the event and you went back and watched it, I imagine you'd be surprised how different it is to the event you just remembered. Human memory is notoriously unreliable. But why do I bring all of this up? What does this have to do with me or Benny or...
Now, would you describe yourself as a happy kid or a lonely one?
His childhood was
made that choice in an instant. I didn't stop to think. I didn't sit there paralyzed looking into a digital mirror. I just knew. But now I'm writing this part of the script only 2 months after playing the game. And I've been drafting the ideas in my head since I first finished it. How is it possible that in my mind that moment was an unbelievably profound eternity as I sat in a dim room grappling with myself? But in reality, you'd barely know I even read the options from the gameplay here. What happened is a classic case of what I'm going to call memory overwrite. I am far underqualified to talk about it, and Daryl Plays Games has a fascinating video on basically the same subject. The gist is, emotionally significant moments are seldom significant in the moment. If you look back on the times that you felt truly happy, at ease, content, the memories are probably of really simple times. Slices of life from the good old days. Nothing all that special happened. It wasn't a major life event, but you still think of it and it soothes you. And sometimes you'll catch a scent on the wind that awakens feelings in you that you haven't felt since that day, and then it's gone in a moment. That profound memory of you sitting on a park bench with friends at 2 a.m. was just another summer evening at the time. But years later, it's a time capsule of better days. During my actual playthrough of Before Your Eyes, I wasn't taking time to stop and self-reflect. I was living in the moment, experiencing the story as fully as possible with the ever-ticking metronome ensuring that I'd never break away from the game's spell. But as the credits rolled and in the hours, days, and weeks after finishing the game, my brain has gone back and surgically attached significance to these moments. Remembering these moments is more emotional than actually experiencing. Human memory is notoriously unreliable. But why do I bring all of this up? What does this have to do with me or Benny or Before Your Eyes? Well, about halfway through the game, you're confronted about the story you've just retold. It becomes clear that this is not an accurate memory, or at least not an accurate telling. Whether deliberately lying or having deluded even himself, the first half of the game is the version of the story where Benny wins. He makes his own path despite the pressure from his parents, and he isn't sick anymore. The first story you see starts simple. It's believable, and I realize I'm just like him. Then he gets lucky, and things are a little dramatic, a little staged, but it's fiction. I've suspended my disbelief. He's the main character. Of course he's doing well. I didn't question any of it. But then the game tells you to get real.
And the gatekeeper, she'll see right through your fake lies as if they were glass.
And you have to recall the real story. A much sadder story. She was someone who was there for her.
So I'm gonna ask you again to start from the very beginning. And this time, I want the truth.
I'd known her for so long that more of her existed in my memory than in real life. When we got back together, it was hard. We also had to start reckoning with the fact that we were changing, you know? We already had this kind of idealized version of each other in our heads from how we remembered each other. A false memory, or maybe it was a real memory just unfairly projected onto the present, but either way, it wasn't accurate. It wasn't true. It wasn't true. In the end, Benny's story takes a turn that is not shared between us. Benny has a terminal illness. In the first section of the game, you live a fantasy where Benny is a lonely kid who takes all of that pain and makes his dreams come true in spite of it. In the second, you face the uncomfortable truth that Benny didn't get that chance. He died young. That's why you're here. And while there are some happy moments towards the end, the truth is that Benny was a lonely kid. And he didn't survive. But one detail of the false memory sticks out to me now. In Ben's fantasy, his mother dies. Why? After a genuinely disturbing realization, I think I can explain why Benny's fantasy life involves the death of his own mother. He doesn't hate her, maybe resents that he's been pushed so hard to be a pianist, but I think he still loves her. This isn't some revenge fantasy, it's a scripted tragedy to make Benny feel worthy of the success and the heartache of his false memory. Something to justify the pain that he actually felt. It's Benny romanticizing a suffering that is more socially acceptable, a suffering that inspires creation, a suffering that is noble. When I was younger, maybe middle school aged, I remember having similar thoughts. Morbid daydreams of people I loved suddenly dying and leaving me alone. Me and Benny wanted a better reason to be depressed than just being alone. Of course, Benny's fatal illness is a compelling reason to be existential, but it's hardly heroic. It's just unlucky. Benny's original underdog story is far more exciting and theatrically dramatic than dying slowly in your room, alone. Now, I imagine if you chose to say that Benny was a happy kid in this part of the game, it probably ends a little differently. But I didn't choose that, and I think if I went back to play it that way now, it would tarnish a little bit of my connection with the game. Because there's this one scene that I don't think I can ever forget. As Benny is confined to his bed as the illness takes hold, he starts writing the story of his life. His mom reads it, and then she can't look at him, she can't talk to him, she can't fucking face him. She didn't know. The pressure of living up to her dreams as a pianist, the resulting isolation from the intense piano practice, the alienation of being forced to audition for an elitist music school that would send him worlds away from his one true friend, his first love. It was her fault he was lonely. And she had no idea. How do you cope with that kind of guilt with years of... I don't think I've ever told this story to anyone, but here goes. Just like Benny, I was a quiet, strange, lonely kid. And I tried to be good at something. Good at something special, something cool. Something that would make me cooler and more likable, make me more friends. But as I dove deeper into these things, I just isolated myself more. I was miserable. I remember one day, I must have been 11 or 12, my parents had found something I had written online on, I think, Wattpad, of all things. Something suicidal. The kind of desperate but feeble cry for help that middle schoolers just end up making. My parents confronted me, and I panicked and told them that a hacker got my account or something. I don't really remember. It was the sort of flimsy, transparent lie that 12-year-old would say if they were caught watching porn or something. But I was caught wanting to die. I remember them being genuinely concerned. They wanted to help me. They offered me therapy, but I insisted that they weren't my words, that a hacker must have logged into my account to make me look bad. I don't think they bought it, because I remember that same look on my mother's face. The way she couldn't face me. The guilt. I felt so much resentment at the time, but how could they have known when I did everything I could to hide it, rejecting help even when it was offered to me? It wasn't her fault. The memory is hazy at this point, and when I do think of it, it's not even from my perspective. It's like I'm watching it from a camera on the other side of the room, and I'm watching myself crumble. I haven't thought about that day in years. I've forgotten the details, but I never forgot that feeling, and the feeling I could see on my mother's face.
Just go in there and tell him you loved it.
I'm sorry, I just can't. Not right now.
Okay, don't worry. Just go to bed. I'll talk to you. Hey, B. Just want you to know that Mom loved your story. She's just, I think it was just very emotional for her to read. But I thought it was great. I mean, look at this. His childhood was a lonely one, growing up a strange and quiet child in an isolated seaside town. I mean, I'm certainly bummed you feel that way. But what I want to know is, where'd you learn to write so well? All those cool words. Reads like Dickens. Really just very cool stuff, kiddo. You should be very proud, okay? Okay. Love you, buddy.
That was the scene I was just talking about. It wasn't until months later, as I rewatched my video of the playthrough, that I had gone back to this moment. And yet again, it does not exist the way I remember it. We never actually see her face in this scene. But the performance, the muffled sound of her voice from the hallway, the cold, empty room. The moment I remember isn't there, but the feeling is identical. This is why Before Your Eyes has impacted me the way it has. The feelings are so rich, so personal, they feel almost biographical. This whole idea of being Ben isn't nearly so important as having the feelings in common with him. The moment I have built this entire idea around doesn't exist. But it made me think of something else. And that link is forever etched into my very being. There are moments in this game that feel like they were crafted just for me. Moments that feel like they have been brought out of my experiences. Moments where it feels like me and Benny just know each other. And my strong connection to this game is just feeling. The two main moments that pushed me to make this video don't exist. But these feelings do. These intense moments where I am remembering things about myself that I had forgotten, things that I have pushed away, things I didn't even know about myself. That's why this game is special for me. Because in so many ways, I am Ben.
I wanna be somebody. Me 2.0 for you.
This coffee's not very good.
And when you meet somebody,
Something fascinating to me is I have no idea what there was no thought there. I don't know why I said that.
I'm gonna say I love you before you say I'm gone. And when that check
That coffee is really not very good at all.